I don't like getting jabbed by needles, and I don't like, being exposed to radiation, but none of these things were happening with this test. It was a perfectly safe test. So why was it torturous for some people? Glaucoma causes irreversible blindness, and that people are unaware of it until it's relatively advanced. And most people around the world with glaucoma are undetected. Now, in Australia, the stats are that 50% of Australians don't know that they have glaucoma. But am I going to sit there and tell someone how to hold the scalpel and where to cut and do this? No, that's not going to work. You got to hold the scalpel yourself.
Welcome to the Dev Ready podcast. Joining me on the Dev Ready podcast today, I have Simon Skalitsky. Simon, thanks for taking the time to jump on the podcast today.
Thanks, Anthony. It's a pleasure to be here.
For those of you that are new to the episode or don't know how we do this, I haven't actually met Simon before, so this is the first time we're greeting and doing their podcast. So I will let Simon take it away and introduce himself.
Thanks, Anthony. I really enjoy the opportunity. So I am an ophthalmologist, that's an eye doctor, surgery and medicine of eye conditions. And I'm also a researcher and academic, an associate professor at Melbourne University and recently at Sydney University as well. I think that Anthony and his team are a little bit interested in my journey because my path has come to the tech path, and I'm sort of what you'd call a late bloomer tech developer. And through my interest and research in eye diseases and how to make things better for our patients, it occurred to me about 6 or 7 years ago that we need to build tech to better test vision and to digitalize some of the vision testing services. And that's been a really interesting journey, working with tech developers, becoming a tech developer myself, learning how to program, and more recently learning how to pick up AI tools and how to fast track my programming. And then there's a whole arm of entrepreneurship that came with that, how to start up a company, bootstrapping it at first from my other business, which is being a clinician, being a practicing doctor, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, what specialists do.
Yep.
And then eventually raising capital, meeting the people in the sort of med tech development space, and also the software engineering space and commercial space, putting together a company, as I said, raising capital. We did a successful capital raise close to 2 years ago, and then taking it from there. And then, one of the really fun parts about this journey is then sort of internationalizing our product, promoting, collaborating with other ophthalmologists from around the world, doing projects in different countries, traveling to these countries and speaking about what we're doing, what our vision is, and how it's impactful. So yeah, it's been, there's been a bit of a snowball effect. It just sort of, it keeps going. A lot of the time I'm being dragged as opposed to me pushing it, but it's been fun.
I think that's the story of a founder. It's you're getting pulled in every direction, and sometimes you don't know which direction it is because it's all new to you. So
that's right. Yeah.
As part of being a clinician, are you working on your own clinic, or are you working for someone else and then you decided to start up and go out on your own?
Yeah, so I, as a clinician, as a lot of specialists in Australia do, I work both in the public system and in the private system. So in the public, I have an appointment at the Royal Victorian Eye and Ear Hospital. Mm-hmm. I'm a member of the glaucoma unit there. So ophthalmologists, you think, wow, the eye's so small, but actually we further subspecialize, and there are different subspecialties within ophthalmology, and mine is in glaucoma and cataracts. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my research and teaching is around the field of glaucoma. So yeah, I'm in the glaucoma unit at the Eye and Ear, but also I have a private practice, which is part of a large group practice. It's called Eye Surgery Associates. It's one of the largest independently owned group practices in Australia. We have 20 eye doctors in our group over 4 sites. Oh, wow. And I'm also involved on the board of Eye Surgery Associates. I'm quite passionate about excellent healthcare, both in the public and the private, and involved in both spheres. And also, I'm quite involved in the World Glaucoma Association. Up until recently, the Australian New Zealand Glaucoma Society exec. I'm on the editorial board of the Journal of Glaucoma. And as I said, I do a lot of teaching and research through universities. But in addition to all that, as I said, I decided to branch out and try to develop new tech. In particular, there was one type of eye test that as a glaucoma specialist, I do a lot of. It's called a visual field test, where we check peripheral vision. Now, we're all pretty familiar with checking central vision, and that's the Snellen chart, where the letters get smaller and smaller and smaller until we can no longer see them. That's a test for central vision. But some diseases preserve central vision but affect peripheral vision, and we're not aware of that often. And the most common disease that does that is glaucoma. And so we need a test of peripheral vision first to help diagnose glaucoma and then monitor it for changes over time. And when I started, and for most clinicians today, the current standard is a big machine where you put your head in the bowl and you look at a dot on the machine and it shines lights in your peripheral vision. And I spent a lot of time learning how these machines work and how to interpret the results. But one thing I never learned in all my training is how patients don't like this experience. And it was only through sort of a few years of clinical practice, and you get to know your patients, you hear what they say. I was just hearing the same thing over and over. Oh, do I have to do that test? Oh, I didn't like that test. And I was just intrigued. And I guess what I was intrigued by was, I don't like getting jabbed by needles, and I don't like, being exposed to radiation, but none of these things were happening with this test. It was a perfectly safe test. So why was it torturous for some people? And then the other thing, can I confess to the world, Anthony, I love computer games. I grew up playing computer games.
Me too.
Like so many in the tech world. And I was thinking about this peripheral vision test, the visual field test. I was thinking, hang on, these people are being shone lights and they're being asked to click in response to the lights. Now, that's a computer game. Now, why is one so much fun and the other torture? And sort of that got me thinking about this visual field test. Can we do it a different way that's a bit more like a computer game, that's a bit more enjoyable to use, maybe even fun, but we, the clinicians, can still get the sort of information that we want from it? Now, at the same time as sort of having those thoughts, as I was saying before, I got involved in sort of Australian and international glaucoma bodies. And one thing that kept cropping up was that glaucoma causes irreversible blindness and that people are unaware of it until it's relatively advanced. And most people around the world with glaucoma are undetected. Now, in Australia, the stats are that 50% of Australians don't know that they have glaucoma. And that's despite having world-leading eye care services, optometry practices, great, ophthalmology centres, etc. Public awareness, a great organisation like Glaucoma Australia, which in the past I was the president of. And despite all of that, 50% is undetected. Now, you might say, well, that's a bad statistic, but that's actually the best in the world. When you go to other countries, that statistic gets even higher. And in fact, where glaucoma is causing the most havoc, I'm talking South and Southeastern Asia and most of Africa, up to 90% of people with glaucoma are undetected. And these are people, we're talking, I think they say 111 million people by 2040. So it's a lot of people. These are people that are actually losing vision irreversibly, but they don't need to be. If we could pick this up somehow, we could do something. There are effective treatments for this. So that got me thinking, well, how do we detect glaucoma? Can we do it in an easier, lower friction, lower cost way that just gets it to people? And I was thinking, well, surely these two facts are related, that the test is torturous and that not enough people are getting access to the tests. So again, this all got me thinking, can I develop software that will do the job of the big machine that does the peripheral vision test? Can it be enjoyable for patients? Can it be sort of translated into many languages so it's intuitive, easy to use? And can this somehow improve detection rates of glaucoma? And that was it in a nutshell. And that's what I spent the years working on. And that was sort of the spark that led to this entrepreneurial journey that is now the company Eyeonic. We've now done more than 45,000 tests.
Oh,
It's
wow.
been used in more than 80 countries and translated into 29 languages. We've published 14 papers, and there's many more to come in the international literature. And as I said, been doing research collaborations validating our technology all around the world.
That's an amazing journey and amazing result you've had so far with the software you've built. It just on that machine, is that the one where you sit with your chin and then you just get lights shined into your eyes? I don't know if I've done the one where you're clicking, but from my experience, the pain or the discomfort is your eyes just getting irritated from having the lights shining into it.
That's one of it. Some of them, some sorts of machines take scans, but some machines actually asks the user to click in response to lights.
Yeah.
And yeah, people find it irritating for a number of reasons. Another of the reasons why they find it irritating is just, some people, we're not all so young, and some people have sore necks, sore backs, etc. They're not so ergonomic. And the other thing is that on the machines, the lights are these tiny little pinprick, very pale lights. And they're sitting there, they're thinking, did I see something or did I imagine it? And they know that it's important. They know that the results of this will be used, to make important decisions. And so they find it stressful that they feel like they're guessing.
And that, would then affect the rates of detection or people's hesitantness to actually go forward with actually trying to do the test or delaying visiting the ophthalmologist to see what happens.
Correct. And also, as you said, it's something I learned along the journey that if a patient doesn't enjoy the test, it actually affects the test results and it makes it less reliable, harder to interpret.
And that's, a huge thing in your world. So how did you go? So you mentioned earlier that you started to learn how to program. Was that by design, or did you just fall into that thinking, I have to learn how to do this to be able to build this game?
It was funny. So look, anyone out there with a software engineering degree, don't all rush to kill me. But I taught myself on YouTube how to program.
Nothing wrong with that. It's a resource, and there's a lot of good information there.
But since then, I've really, as my roles become more serious, I've done some actual proper courses. So don't worry about that. But I started off, I didn't like. When I got into all this, I didn't know any of the terminology of entrepreneurship. But in retrospect, I was building an MVP, except I didn't even know what an MVP, that is a minimum viable product for those out there. And I did it, just on one web page with no concerns about, anything scalable, just a proof of concept thing. And that was sort of how I scratched it together on my own. And then I was really lucky because before I learned how to code, I knew how to do research, and I've published a number of papers evaluating novel diagnostic products. So I knew how to do that, and we were doing some research in my rooms, all under sort of the proper ethics, governance, etc. By Human Research Ethics Committee. One of my patients that was doing the test, he said, "I know what you're trying to do here. I love it. I work for Microsoft. I want to help."
Oh, wow.
And so he introduced me to the Microsoft for Startups program, and he really helped me get the right people around me to turn it from an MVP to something that you'd expect a proper commercially deployed piece of software with all the cybersecurity, with all the architecture, everything that you'd expect, the proper database setup, etc. So that was an eye-opening for me as a doctor. I didn't know this world before.
And I think that's a problem. A lot of people who think they're going to become a founder and do a startup and build software, they've never been in the space. They don't understand how much detail there is. Like you said, the eye surgery, if you're a doctor for the eye, there's a lot of subcategories you can focus on. It's a lot like that with development and software.
That's right.
There's deployment, there's architecture, there's security, there's the actual engineering, there's the planning. There's a lot of facets there that people don't realize.
That's right. And to answer your original question, Anthony, I think you asked, did I want to outsource this to someone else to build, or did I want to build it myself? My initial plan was probably to outsource it, but I quickly realized that I needed the level of control to actually do it myself. And I kind of say this a bit as a joke, but when you're a surgeon, because I'm a surgeon as well, Anthony, like, what am I going to sit there and tell someone how to hold the scalpel and where to cut and do this. No, that's not going to work. You got to hold the scalpel yourself.
Yep.
And it's the same with programming. So because it went through many iterations. It's an iterative process. I code at night, take it to clinic, patients use it during the day. I watch, I think, oh, that's didn't quite behave like I thought it would. And then I recode the next night. And that's the iterative process. And that's how you achieve excellence. But, as I said before, back in the day when it started, it was just me. Now I've got a whole team of developers and we've got a great CTO. We're using a combination of onshore and offshore. We carefully guard our IP and our code. We use AI in it. And I still work on it, but the bit that I work on is sort of the core algorithms to make it work as a clinical device. And now there's a very robust software around it, logins, different types of, you've got a clinician login, an enterprise login, clinician account, enterprise account, and also patient accounts and how they all interact. It's a really sophisticated piece of software now, bespoke, built for our customers' needs. And that sort of thing I don't work on now, but I still make sure the quality of the test remains very high.
And that has to be because you're in the medical space, and that is a different level of rigor you need to do compared to a normal data management platform for a business.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone involved in software has to take cybersecurity incredibly seriously. There's no sort of cutting corners around that. But medicine has this other dimension of regulation, which is regulatory approval. So you can't. Let's forget about software for a moment. Just say we've developed a new gadget for implanting into people for surgery, or we've developed a new medicine or a new diagnostic device. You can't just bring that to the market. You have to go through regulatory medical approval. Now in Australia, it's the TGA, the Therapeutics Good Association. In America, it's the FDA. Everyone's probably heard of the FDA, and there's different bodies in different countries, and your product has to go through a very rigorous review by these bodies, and every single country you go to has to go through a review, and the review process is kind of different. And we had to set up a quality management system to get it off the ground in Australia. And I had to learn all about quality management systems, how to run such a system, what sort of research was needed to get approval, which was quite a time-consuming and expensive process. But I'm pleased to say, our product, the Eyeonic visual field test, has been approved in 12 countries now, including USA, UK, India, Australia, and a few countries in Africa and Singapore. It's again, like any sort of founder journey, you just roll up your sleeves and you work really hard and you get there. But don't try to do it all yourself. Surround yourself with great people.
And you need a team to do it. You can try and get as much as you can done up front, but you can't do everything.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that probably one of the biggest realizations you had when you started thinking, all right, this is something we can work? Then you thought, all right, how do I turn it into something? You sort of had a half, like a tech CTO founder with you through that Microsoft support there. But then I'm sure there was a lot of learnings along the way, just being as a clinician that you didn't know about that you needed just for the business side, let alone the tech side.
Yeah, absolutely, Anthony. And it was a real sort of journey of discovery. I'm so pleased that there are like courses and programs to help budding entrepreneurs just to let them know what they need. I mean, I guess, one thing I've learned through life is if you don't know something, there's someone out there that does. You just need to find them and pay them. But that's sort of a bit cynical because what I discovered with Eyeonic, maybe one of the most important things, was to just share the vision, just to say, this is what I'm trying to do. And, at the start, like when you start things, people don't take you so seriously. But then as you go along, people take you more and more seriously. And what I say about Eyeonic is that we're a great team. Everyone shares the vision, but everyone brings their unique skills to the table. And so when I look at the team around me, and we've got, there's 30 plus people now involved, mostly in Australia, but many around the world. No one has the same set of skills, but we all bring different skills and we all respect each other's skills, and that's a team.
Yeah, and that's how it works. And everyone's got their own different lived experiences, their own viewpoints. And the more viewpoints you have, the better a solution you can come up with, I find.
Yeah, that's right.
So, as part of the journey that you've now got this in all these countries and you've had all those approvals, have you found that there's a different challenge in trying to reach every country because the approvals are different, the regulations are different? The translations would have been one problem, but I think there's more of like the cultural and the adoption will probably be a bigger issue.
Definitely. The like all everything you said, Anthony, is true. Every country has its unique challenges, but I think the biggest challenge everywhere is just getting acceptance. We decided for right or for wrong that our customer was not. Well, I should say our target market was clinicians. We didn't want to go straight to consumer with this, even though there's always the option of that. We knew that this was disruptive technology, and we know that clinicians don't like too much disruption. They just like a little bit. And so we didn't want them to feel undermined by this. And so that's why we've sort of crafted it as a, clinicians purchase it or health organizations purchase it. And then, the relationship between them and their customers is up to them. So it's not direct to patient.
Yep.
So then having said that, the biggest challenge is adoption by clinicians and how to sort of get them to adopt it, because clinicians by and large they just want to stick with their old machines even though it tortures their patients.
That's what they're familiar with. They know it works, they know it's reliable, it's been there for years.
That's right.
So it's always hard to bring innovations, I think, in the medical space because of that regulation. And then there's, depending on where you are as well in the world, like I'm guessing if you're in America, it's a lot more litigious. So if something does go wrong, now they're more liable.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to personalities. There are sort of other sort of similar, although not quite the same, products that sort of have been in different parts of the world, and just some of them have gone badly. So in some parts of the world, some sort of similar kinds of products have been there a few years ago and there's been a negative response to that, and that actually made our lives harder.
It's tarnished that concept of probably delivery of the scan now. So you have to overcome that hesitation.
So when it comes to the relationship with competitors, it's not necessarily an adversarial relationship. Often we work together.
Yep.
So that's been interesting, but yeah, there's a lot of cultural finesse and understanding the different cultures and the different needs, and working with local champions. That's really important. And when I'm just thinking of all my friends all around the world that I've met, that I've traveled to, that we've worked together, and I guess that's just been a privilege. That's sort of part, being involved in international glaucoma organizations. And I think being Australian helps, because when you're Australian, you grow up, like I went to a very multicultural school. A lot of my friends are different cultures, different ethnicities. It's just normal. And so you just get, I don't know, you get used to that, and you learn how to respect. I don't know, saying that, Anthony, believe me, I've made plenty of faux pas.
But it's hard. You don't know all the nuances of every culture.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Everyone is super gracious. We have a laugh and we move on.
Yeah, you're trying to do the right thing, so people accept that, and they know that you're not there for malicious purposes.
Yeah.
So just before I ask my next question, when did you start this, so then I can phrase my next question correctly?
Yeah, so the idea was swirling around in my head in around 2019.
Okay.
And really what sparked my sort of coding focus was the COVID pandemic in early 2020, where I had, I don't know if you remember, but a lot of elective surgery shut down.
Yep.
And I had a bit of time up my sleeve, and I thought, well, let's do this. And that's when my plan A was just to take it to developers. But I thought, well, I've got time. Let's instead learn how to code and do it myself so that I can tweak it as it goes along.
Okay.
And that was the right decision, by the way.
Yeah, because you've got the domain knowledge, you can have the depth, and you know what you're trying to achieve from a clinical perspective. If you were in Melbourne, you probably would have gone through a bit faster because we had longer lockdowns.
Yeah, let's not go there.
So since that time, so you started before the ChatGPT and the AI coding tools, which have been about a year and a bit now. How have you seen that change come through now and affecting what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Anthony. So it's interesting because one of the challenges that our business has at the moment is how to start using those in our coding processes. and whether that will affect our regulatory approvals, whether that will affect our cybersecurity posture. And we've actually, one of the things we've done is we've got an external auditor to review us. That's sort of the sort of company that looks at the tech team and the tech stack and where you're going and what you're trying to do and give us advice. And they've sort of given us a bit of advice about how to proceed with that. And I think the first step, which I think this is for all companies, not just for tech companies, but the first step for any company that wants to introduce AI is to create a set of governance papers that these are the rules around what to do and what not to do with AI. Because once you start using AI, there's this issue of, can it now look at my IP and then use that in other models? And in fact, is there increased leakiness to my IP? So that's the first thing to worry about. Having said that, though, I'm always working on new products. I'm not just coding a visual field test, and I'm sort of a bit liberated on working with new products, which sort of exist mostly in my head at this stage. And so I'm really getting stuck into some AI coding, and it's great. It's like I'm so much more efficient. I can try this, try that. So I encourage all developers to give it a go.
Yeah, I think on the coding side, you can iterate a lot faster. So you can try a lot more experiments simply because what you used to be able to do in a night could take you a couple of hours now.
Yeah.
And then you can do 2-3 days worth of experiments and test them at the same time. In saying that, you can also do a lot of the wrong things faster too.
Maybe can I ask you a question, Anthony? Because I know you sort of interview a lot of people. I've heard it said that if you know how to code in an orthodox way and then adopt the AI way of coding, you're at a bit of an advantage. So if for someone starting out now, would you advise them to learn how to code orthodox, like learn how to do HTML, CSS, JavaScript, etc., learn how to write a for loop? Or do you just go straight into AI coding and not worry about that?
I believe you need to know. It's not the coding that you need to know per se. It's more the fundamentals on how to structure data, how to set up a database, and how those things work. So, because if you get that wrong, it doesn't matter what you do, your app's going to run terribly. It's not going to work properly. So it's more about the design and the planning part of the software. I think you need to understand, and how to put things together logically. Like knowing how to write a for loop is just the doing part of the programming. The planning side is more important. Similar to, like we mentioned before, you're not telling someone how to hold a scalpel, but if you had a robot and you could give it the exact instructions and you knew what you were doing, the planning part is more important. Because then moving to a spot and slicing is the same every time, almost. Not exactly. I know it's a terrible analogy for the eye and how it works, but I'll probably word it this way. The AI coding tools are more like a nail gun, where you're coding previously with a hammer and a nail. You can do it faster. But if you don't have the plan for how the house is put together, you're just going to be putting it together faster wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. The only thing I would add is that before you move to the nail gun, you should know a little bit about how to use a hammer, because sometimes mistakes happen, bugs, and it's always good to just be able to quickly glance over code and just have a vague idea of what it is, as opposed to it looking like hieroglyphics.
I would suggest that you need to learn how to plan and know how to, whatever language that your AI is coding in, start getting familiar with it, and you can use the AI to help teach you do it. So you start looking at the code and reviewing it. Don't accept blindly, because there's a lot of nuance there that you don't understand. Depending on how complex your solution is, you're going to go into the security issues, performance issues. You'll start getting concurrency problems where data is overriding itself and you don't know why. Then if you're going into really complex stuff, you have locks and memory locks. So you have to lock a certain bit of memory while you're doing something so it doesn't get changed because something else is using it, or things like that. So there's a lot of complexity you can get to. And the AI allows you to get to that top level now without having to do all the hard yards to get to it.
That's right.
So it's an interesting space in how fast it's come, especially from ChatGPT can write you an email, which probably 90% of people are still just doing that. Then there's another segment now where if you've got an idea, you can build it, but it's not going to get you 100% to market.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what's in the future coming up for you in the next year or 18 months?
Yeah, so Ionic is going through some really exciting growth phases where we're sort of solidifying our positions in many countries, including Australia. Um, I think that we've got another capital raise, which will be really exciting because we've achieved a lot of our milestones that we set up from our last capital raise.
That's
And I
exciting.
guess for me personally, when I look back, when I was sort of doing a bit of everything for this company, and I've really been able to scale back, and I've got great people. I've got a great CEO. I've got a great CTO. Got great board members that help me with the sort of the governance and the fundraising, et cetera, the investment. It allows me to really focus on potentially new products that I want to code. I feel like I'm really fortunate to be in this position of being a academic researcher, a practicing clinician, and a software developer. And I feel like there's more to be done. I feel like the world of eye care is still very in the analog space, and this concept that if I've got a problem and it's a chronic problem, I need to go regularly and get checked. And constantly going in and getting checked, whether it's an optometrist or whether it's an ophthalmologist. And that might work in the countries that sort of built that model in sort of the wealthier countries. But as the rest of the world is catching up, it's not a great scalable problem. So it's not necessarily an equitable problem.
Yep.
So I'm really excited to help develop the new line of sort of AI-based digital eye diagnostic solutions, and to sort of fill them out instead of just having one visual field test that works, having a comprehensive solution for eye care and eye testing, so that people can do a lot of it on their own devices at home, telehealth. And then when the clinician needs to get involved is in more sort of a precise scenario when there's a problem that they need to solve. It'll lead to more efficient eye healthcare, and more equitable eye healthcare, and hopefully a more affordable system for us all. I'm not worried that I'm sure a lot of clinicians and people in general are worried that AI is going to take my job. That's not true. It's just going to
Yeah.
change our jobs and make us a bit more efficient and focused where we need to be.
Those are the kinds of innovations that people want to see AI bringing, where it's benefiting people, not just a faster way or another CRM. So you're innovating in the right areas that people are probably expecting AI to have been assisting. So congratulations on that.
Thanks, Anthony. It's funny because some people want it and a lot of people don't want it.
Yeah, it's change is hard. That's what it is. People are used to things. As an idea, I don't know if it's possible, but I really don't like that puff test that the optometrist do. So I don't know if there's something you can do there as a product.
Oh, look, I'm not working on that, but
Yeah.
because I sort of sometimes get asked to go to meetings and talk about new things, like I was in a panel in San Francisco just a few months ago, and in the same panel was someone working on that. And
Okay.
I thought, wow, that is so cool. But there's some really clever software engineers and engineers that just do amazing stuff, and I feel like they don't get celebrated enough. And I think, Australia, we should take our STEM seriously. We should be proud of our scientific achievements, and we should focus on that and technology development. I think our government wants us to become leaders in digital health, and I don't see why not. We've got a fantastic health system. Australia's got one of the best healthcare systems in the world. I've seen it. I've seen other countries, and it could be one of our greatest national exports. But it isn't, because it's sort of all inward turning. And so this is an opportunity for us to bring it around the world and turn it into a great Australian export.
And hopefully AI can help us get there faster, because it'll give more people like yourself an opportunity to accelerate what you're trying to do. Well,
Thank you, Anthony.
Simon, it's been a pleasure having you on the Dev Ready podcast today. If anyone wants to find out more about yourself, how can they do that?
They can go to a website, eyeonic.com, eyeonic.com. They can email me, roll up your sleeves and help. This is how this project has begun. This is how this project has grown.
Yep. Well, Simon, thank you, and congratulations on your success to date, and good luck with the next round of raising.
Thank you, Anthony. Thanks for having me. And also congratulations to you on this great podcast. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you.